Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Exploring 3D Experience Works. My name is John Martirano, and joined with me is Gian Calisi. We're both industry process consultants, and we are here to present, or we run this live stream called Exploring 3D Experience Works. And we basically cover all of the 3D Experience Works portfolio. So the first question you might have if you're new or if you're joining us again is, what is 3D Experience Works? What's this thing you're about to explore live with us? It's a growing portfolio of tools that are handpicked by SolidWorks to solve just about any design challenge that you face in product development. So this is 3D Experience Works that you see on screen. What does this product development process look like? Well, in its simplest form, it is planning, developing, and releasing a product. And we all know how well SolidWorks tackles that second step, developing and iterating on your design. But the rest of the 3D Experience Works fills the gaps to provide that one-stop shop, a connected connected solutions. So if you joined us at all in 2020, then you know we've been all over the map. But today we're going to be sticking to our roots, but we are going to be covering something new. Gian, what are we going to be covering?
Yeah, it's funny you said it that way because we're sticking to our roots, covering SolidWorks, but it is a little bit newer because it's one of our newer versions of SolidWorks that is completely connected to the cloud, and it's called 3D Experience SolidWorks. So just like the SolidWorks you know and love, but with a few added benefits that are kind of already inside the software, ready to go out of the box. And to help us go through some of what's new in 3D Experience SolidWorks as of the latest release, we brought in one of our favorite experts, Mike Sande.
No, he's our
Yeah.
favorite.
Hold on.
Come on. You can't do
am I
that
your
and then take
favorite
that
or
back.
am I one of your favorite? Because I would rather be just the favorite. I
Well,
don't like sharing.
I mean, I didn't want to
favoritism.
offend our past guests, but I got to give it to you, Mike. I think you're my
Okay,
favorite.
fair enough. Fair enough. Fair
Welcome,
enough.
Mike.
Thanks. Awesome. Well, we have a lot to cover, so I'm super excited to be here to talk about one of our newer products. It's been out for about a year now, and that's actually we released 3D Experience SolidWorks Connected around this time last year. We've seen a ton of development over this last year, so we're going to talk about the 2022X enhancements. And I think it's worth mentioning, if you're familiar with SolidWorks and the release schedule, we do one big release every year, and along the way, there's 5 of those service packs. We do the similar thing here where we have 2022X, which is around November. That'll come out. So we should see this go live here in a couple weeks. And then we do about 7 FDs, or functional deliverables, along the way. And those actually are enhancements along with bug fixes. So just to be aware, when we talk about 2022X, that's really what we're saying. It's like the SolidWorks release schedule. I'm going to be going through and using this data set. This is a Nemo submersible. Not a submarine, a submersible. Gian, do you know the difference between the two?
Putting me on the spot here. I feel like I could guess it, but let's see if somebody in the chat figures it out.
All right. So there is a difference between a submersible and a submarine. This is submersible, and you can buy this today. They're not cheap, around $1 million to get your own private sub. Goes down to about 100 meters, which is super cool. Cruise down, explore, check it out. They're a customer of ours. They're based out of the Netherlands and have designed this whole thing using the SolidWorks suite of products. So we thought we'd highlight them in this data set and kind of as we go through, because it's a heavy duty file, 6,700 I think components. Really fun to play with. So nice work, guys, over at U-Boat Works Nemo. All right, so today's kind of breakdown. I thought we would start off with a little introduction of what 3D Experience SolidWorks really is, and more so from why it's beneficial to like a user today, right? I think you guys nailed it with all of the other solutions that the 3D Experience platform offers, from machining to project management to data management to simulation. That's great, but what does this product have to offer for me today? So I want to talk about the user's perspective on the value it really adds. And then we'll get into the fun stuff, the what's new 2022X enhancements that I love. We'll talk about some of the UX, UI. We'll do a little parts and assemblies. And then as we go through, I got to hit on SolidWorks Visualize. It's my favorite product. So we'll look at some of the new connected version. So just like 3D Experience SolidWorks, that comes with Visualize Professional in the Pro and Premium version. And we'll kind of give you guys a little glimpse of what that means to be connected in Visualize, along with a few of my favorite enhancements in 2022X. And then finally, we'll get into some simulation. We can't go anywhere without running some sims on a sub. Sims on a sub. Ooh, that's a tough one. We'll check out some new enhancements there as well. So lots to cover as we go through. If you have questions, get them in the chat. We're happy to answer as we need be. Now, before we jump into the software, I wanted to go over to the platform. And we'll use this term, and you probably heard it quite a bit, the 3D Experience platform. And really what that is just a website. It's just one place that you can go add your data, collaborate with your teams, all sorts of cool stuff. Now here, I'm logged into a web browser, and we've created a custom kind of community for everyone on my team to be able to access. So think of this as like a social type stream that's secure, it's safe, it's just for people you invite, but you can do things like post questions and ideas and tasks. And you really can collaborate on a project, and you get these active threads. So in this case, I'm going to go ahead and add a question here. We'll start off the presentation with a typo. So how is going to check. I meant to write who, I don't know. Wires got crossed. But now I've posted something here, and everyone around the world that has access, secure access to this nice little dashboard can see it. So one nice thing you get with the 3D Experience platform in terms of how I would use it and how I use it. But another thing is we get all of our data is stored here. And I wanted to pull over and show you just some of these, what we call collaborative spaces. Now, think of that as like maybe a network server, or actually you can just think of it as like a big folder. And what's so great about this is I no longer have to worry about folder structure or organization. This is just where I'm saving anything. This is CAD data. This is non-CAD data. I think, John, your favorite Mike, 80s mix we could put up here?
Yeah. I was just about to ask you, what are some of those examples of those non-CAD items that I could throw up there?
Like MP3s, MP4s, but, functional things like Word docs can go into here. PDFs are, common in our industry. Excel documents, anything you can save here. And again, we're just dumping it in there, and we're letting the platform kind of index all of this, make it searchable, and it'll go through and look at keywords and stuff, and we can start to find that, tag it and organize it a little different than we're used to in a window structure, which is really convenient. In this case, I have 4 collaborative spaces that I have visibility to, and I can control visibility to other users. So if we, someone in operations, we maybe not have the new hire have access to that, because that could be financial data or whatever it might be. So just think collaborative spaces, and we'll bring this back in as we kind of walk through. And I wanted to introduce that up front. ECO. So how are you guys doing your engineering change order process now? To me, the platform and 3D Experience SolidWorks Connected, when you purchase this, you get access to this too. It's a super awesome way to manage issues. Having someone go through and say, hey, these bolts don't line up. We gotta make this change. And as a user, I can log in on Monday morning, see what's the really, really important ECOs to go through and affect those parts and make the changes in CAD. Obviously, I think the number one benefit you're going to get is an out-of-the-box data management solution and lifecycle management solution. If those are terms that are kind of new to you, you're not really sure, then this is definitely something you should be looking at. Those new companies are starting up all the way into those 20, 30 seat users that just want to manage their data, or even that. This out of the box is great. You have different workflow states. So once it's released, you can't make the change. 3D Experience SolidWorks Connected offers this out of the box, makes it really easy to use. And I can access these workflows from anywhere through a web browser. All right, finally, I use tasks all the time. And what I've done is I've created just a link of tasks for this webinar. So there's my little intro to the platform. And again, the platform is just one single place where we can save our data. We can access other things like ECO processes, workflows, a collaborative space, community, you name it. Just a nice place. It's all centralized location.
So, Mike, these are our tasks that we're going to be focusing on today during this webinar.
You got it. Yep. All right, so let's move one over here, because the first one we'll do is just review some basics of the 3D Experience SolidWorks Connected. So basically we want to go through and just kind of introduce you to what the platform is really about. Now, I'm going to launch that tool, 3D Experience SolidWorks Connected, right from the platform, so through my web browser. And you can also you can create a little shortcut on your desktop. So it's easy to do, no problem. Now, once I open this up, this is local. This is a local installation. This is much like the desktop SolidWorks you know and love today, but you'll see a few different changes. One is right away, it's giving me the option to say, hey, what collab space am I working on? And this could be project orientated. This could be company wide. You can structure this however you want. Maybe a new, new user or someone to the company, you'd only want them working on the current project. You'd only have access to that. Here I've got a couple spots like our catalog, a common space, and so on. So I'm just going to say I'm working right now in the U-Boat Works collaborative space. This is where the full assembly lives, all of our CAD parts live, and so on. Now let's go ahead and open something. Another thing you'll see a little different is when I file open, is it gives me a little window into the platform, to the cloud, all the data stored up there. I wanted to highlight this, is we can go through and we can still open locally. So if you download something from, a third-party supplier, 3D Content Central, for example, and you want to save that to the cloud, you open it locally and save to the cloud. You can still work locally, and you can also save locally. I'm going to go in and I'm going to open up an assembly. So this here, again, we're looking onto a collab space. We've got this data somewhere in the cloud. I don't care where or why, because it doesn't matter to me. But do things like filter by assemblies. We can open Resolve, Lightweight, Enlarge Design Review, which we'll talk more about in a little bit. And then we'll fire this up. So when I go and click to open, this will actually bring that data set down locally on my machine. So we're getting the best possible performance, right? We want to have this local. I'm working with it. Once I'm done and we put it back, it'll save all those changes back to the cloud. So everyone on our team will see it and know that some work's been done. All right, in this case, I open this up and I'm going to drill in one more part. And this is pretty cool because what I love about it is you have these security gates saying, hey, you can't start working on this until you actually grab it. You got to take ownership of it. That keeps, problems like John and I, if we're all working on the same data set and we're doing the same workflows, we're overwriting our stuff. So right away, get that read-only ready to go. I have to take ownership. So let me introduce the task pane. SolidWorks users out there, you guys know it. This is where like Toolbox resides, our views from drawings and so on. When you have this version, the 3DEXPERIENCE Connected version, you'll see we have this nice little UI that this is where all my file management kind of comes into play. So I can take and look at this and say, hey, I know that it's the latest version, or in this case, it's not. The little plus mark, if I would extend this out, would say, I don't have the latest revision. That's a problem. It also would show me if you were working on this, I would get notification that you have ownership, and I can't do anything until you let me have at it. Again, making sure we're not doubling up on our work or overwriting our work. When I go to get the newest revision, so in this case, someone's gone through and made a change to it, simple enough. I just say, all right, we got a Rev B, that's the latest, greatest. I can see, comments or reasons why this was created a new Rev. In this case, I just want to get it. So I'm going to say, give me Rev B, click the OK, downloads that new version from the cloud, puts it local to my machine, and now we can see I'm ready to go. The last operation is really just to lock it or take ownership. This is just blocking anyone else out from accessing that file and working with it. No big deal. You guys can get it later, but I got to work on this now today, and I'm going to go ahead and modify a little bit of this the keyhole slot. All right, so that's it. That's kind of the biggest thing you'll see as a user is just a little different way that you're managing your data, because you're managing your data versus like a desktop or a network location or, God forbid, another cloud or a collaborative cloud sharing tool that doesn't manage references. Ugh, that's bad, right? So this does all of that. Nice task pane, all integrated, and it's all connected. Anywhere in the world I can get to this stuff. Now I wanted to point out too, because this is important, that we can also save back to the cloud. We can also save locally. So there's a couple save options here. Just be aware. Maybe you want to do a little side project and design a new deck, right? Keep that off the company's collaborative space. You can still do that. You can still do that locally on your desktop. Don't tell your boss I told you that, but it's still available. All right, so we're going to go ahead and save this. What this will do is send my changes up to the cloud, ready to go. Now everyone at the company can access that new change on the new keyhole slot, and we're ready to rock. And I just release it, unlock it. All right, you guys, how was that? That's pretty good. You see the value right there out of that kind of 3D Experience SolidWorks, really that data management, cloud connection is to me is the number one.
Yeah, and I mean, Mike, it's one of those situations where, PDM Professional is an absolutely fantastic solution, but this for maybe a smaller size company, this is really out of the box. Doesn't require
Yeah.
a big install, and honestly, like big configuration. It's just it's right there, ready to use, right?
Yeah, it's a great point. So this, we've heard from customers all around the world, PDM Pro is a good solution. It's a great solution, but there's a lot of overhead. You have to have local servers. If you want to extend that, you're looking at a lot of IT overhead. Most companies with a lot of users have a dedicated personnel, not just one people, multiple people that are in charge of managing, their PDM vault. So there's still a great fit for it. It's definitely not going away. But what we're missing is that those companies that say, I don't want that. I don't want the IT overhead. I don't want the struggles of buying servers and maintaining Windows Server updates and all of that. Make it easy. This is making it easy. So we've done it.
Great.
Awesome.
Looks like we checked that into the completed task. So like, what's next?
It feels so good to do that too. Like done.
Yeah.
All right.
Absolutely.
So let's go over and we'll take a look at some just UI UX enhancements in 2022X that I think every user is going to love. And if you guys aren't currently using SolidWorks, you're kind of investigating solutions. Make note, because when you start to pick it up, if you try a trial or whatever it might be, these are some of my favorites. And 2022 has been a great year. All right, our first task is right inside of here. We need to add another thruster. In fact, there's 3 thrusters that still need to be assembled inside of the Nemo. What we'll do is, in the way that the U-Boat Works team designed this, is they actually created a sub-assembly dedicated for just the thrusters. And to collaborate in positioning everything, they use coordinate systems. Who on the top of their head? Gian, I'm putting you on the spot. Where do I find a coordinate system if I wanted to create it?
I think it's
too late. You're fired. No.
Fire.
You're not really fired, but it's you might not know. If you don't have years, or even if you do have years behind SolidWorks CAD, like I don't know where coordinate systems are because it's in a drop-down menu.
Right.
The S key, which is like the best thing ever. I program it to my mouse. I use it so much. S as in Sam. Now has search all commands built in. We've had search commands before, but it's been on the upper right-hand screen, and you're gonna throw out your wrist trying to get up there and back and forth so many times. So they just added it right here. I can just type it in and say coordinate. Oh, there we go, coordinate system. Now, if I want, we could add it. I'll show you that later. But simply, let's see where it was. And Gian, sorry, I cut you off. You didn't get an answer. Do you know where it was?
Yeah, I know it's under reference geometry.
Okay. All right. So you're hired back.
Okay. Oh, thank God.
But this will actively show you. It'll say, hey, check out reference geometry with an arrow. I did put that in there. It just says it's right there. Cool. All right. So that's super handy. Search commands. Let's go over to the coordinate system, though, because I think coordinate systems are awesome. I think they're very underutilized. And now in 2022X, we're going to see things like being able to define a coordinate system position by its X, Y, and Z location. You can also take and rotate it. So like collaborating on an assembly with multiple users, or like think about doing a floor layout. You have now the ability to say, hey, you're going to work on this. Your coordinate system is here. That way, when you go to mate things in, you just pop it right into place. But to locate those, before you had to create a 3D sketch point, use that, and then create it. Now it's all one click. I can locate the coordinate system, and I can even rotate it in a position. Now this is sweet. We want to now mate another one of those thrusters to it. Coordinate systems, when you mate them, will align X, Y, and Z, so it's fully defined with one mate. How cool is that? If you didn't know that, that's awesome. But I'd have to go show the coordinate system, come in, mate it, and then hide it because it might get messy. The Q key in 2022X now brings up all reference geometry on the fly. So I can do Q key, just like that. We see our planes. We see the coordinate systems for each thruster. We see the coordinate system for the overall assembly. Made it in a position. Done. Coordinate systems now actually support sketching right onto them. I love this. This is like one of the hidden gems of 2022X. So you can actually highlight and get that like X, Y, Y, Z, Z, X plane and create a sketch
So skip the
skip
plane.
the plane.
Not skip the sketch,
Right.
but skip the plane.
You skip right into it, and you can even do things like create a section view. So I can grab that plane and just on the fly create a referencing section view. In this case, we want to take a look inside the thrusters because thrusters are cool. It's super easy to do. And this would be a pretty complicated operation to get a precise section view in that case otherwise. All right, going back to that search command, there's the plus. So maybe it's something like mirror component. Use this all the time in assemblies. Let's just add it to our S key. You can now do that right from the plus. Plops that on. Now it's there for me to take with me everywhere I go. I can always have that when I'm working in assemblies. Love that too. Okay, let's go over and look at a couple system options. And how are you guys on system options? Do you know this library inside and out?
Oh, no.
It's tough, right? The only way to learn it
Tough.
is like working years of support, where you got to know it inside and out. Other than that, we've added the search option to it in the past. That's been really helpful. But I love this. They now in 2022X, you'll see a little info, and it gives a better description of what might be going on in a system option or a document. So look for those little info buttons. It's just more information, right? Knowledge is power. What they've done is they carry that same kind of hover over non-concatenated the word version of it into the dismiss messages. So little pro tip. If you dismiss a message, you say, don't show me this again, and you say like no or never. That is always the button SolidWorks clicking, and it just won't show the message. That gets filed here. So if you're like, I used to get this message asking me this, and I would say yes, one time I click no, and I know this trick. And now if you're trying to figure out exactly what they are, 2022X gives you the nice little hover over, and super awesome. All right, let's go ahead and undismiss this one. So I'll just click it, and it'll now come up actively as I'm designing, so I can reread it and redecide on my decision. And just like that, we're going to go ahead and export these out. So the export SolidWorks files, aka pack and go, 3DEXPERIENCE SolidWorks Connected, a little bit different name change here. This will now in 2022X actively grab all your references. So there's a few that weren't necessarily tucked in here. No problem. You will always get every file pulled in just like that. So I'm going to go ahead and export my files, and then we'll see these come across. All right, let's jump ahead here. They've done a little bit of UI update in terms of just some of the messages that you see, like the save reminder. Super awesome. Just a little bit sleeker, and even better as I come up and I start working on a part in 3DEXPERIENCE SolidWorks Connected. Awesome. This read-only document, if I don't have it locked to myself, I get right up front flag saying, hey, you got to lock this if you're going to be working on it, just so you know.
So you can take access to it right now.
Yeah, exactly.
Or you can take control, I should say.
Grab the task pane and look to see. It just tells me I haven't locked it yet. And I should point out, if you do a bunch of work and then you're like, oh, I didn't see the message, you can still lock it, take ownership, save it, and then unlock it. You don't lose that work, but not just a nice little UI enhancement to it. Hey guys, any questions coming through in the chat that we want to hit on?
Did have Vineet. He did ask if there was a student version available. I believe Sarah was very helpful in dropping a link to that. So Vineet, definitely be sure to check that out.
Yeah, definitely check out 3DEXPERIENCE SolidWorks for students. Got some great options. But yeah, if you are at a licensed school, then some of your professors or your IT department there should be able to help out. Other than that, yeah, it looks like we got some user groups.
Yeah, and if you
must be doing a great job explaining everything so clearly, Mike.
Good. The other thing too is, maybe you're close to graduating and you lose that student license, not quite finding a job or looking for the right job. We also we have a makers version as well, and that makers version is kind of for that side hustle. That little garage startup that you might be working on. $100 a year, can't go wrong. So check that out as well.
Netflix costs more than that. I mean,
it does. Yeah. Right. Man, it makes it seem really cheap. That's crazy. All right, let's jump over and talk a little bit about parts. Some cool new enhancements here as well. One, I think that is pretty mind blowing, especially if you've been in the CAD game for a couple years, is our ability now to work with imported mesh data. So this part here is probably sent from a supplier, downloaded from, whatever online website, but it came in as mesh B-rep geometry, meaning it's not actual like feature-based geometry. It's all mesh information. And we want to work on this. We want to modify the handle to be a little bit better for the Nemo. Before you'd have to do some magic. Years and years ago, you'd have to do a lot of magic, and it was tough to do, but we made it better. 2022X, it's phenomenal. Leaps and bounds. We can now add features directly onto mesh bodies that are imported into SolidWorks. So like adding a chamfer. I don't have to do any conversions or, remake any of the geometry. I just grab the edge, apply the chamfer, boom, it's there, and it's now a feature on the list. You can sketch on this stuff. You can create boss extrusions like our little Nemo symbol on there. Create reference geometry, simply apply that as well. And then you can even do things like cutting holes. In fact, I got to point this out. This is super cool. The hole wizard in 2022X, we've had slots for some time now. They've added additional definition to slots. So before it was like the concentric middle of the slot where the holes would be, or the radius center. You could define that. Now you can say, I want the external tangency or the internal linear line in a slot. Those dimension schemes are supported. Let's go back. I'm going to create a slot on a mesh body. We'll pop it in here. 2022X. You want to rotate that thing 90 degrees. Tab key. Simple enough. I'm going to spin it around, be able to plop it in and create my hole on mesh. Now let's go like level up here on super cool part feature on mesh body, and we're gonna add some draft. This is like, I've been waiting for this forever. You can now add dual directional draft in one feature. So if I go in and create draft on this part, we want to do 6 degrees up, 2 degrees down. I can do it in one feature by selecting those two directions, and it creates the draft in a single feature. Before you'd have to do this twice, and it was kind of unnecessary work. So any plastic part designer, mold makers out there, you guys are going to love that feature, that capability. So last thing we're going to do, since we modified this handle, we'll have to send that out to get some new tooling done, but we just want to send the handle out. Let's go ahead and save the bodies. This is nothing new for SolidWorks. 3D Experience SolidWorks Connected. What is really slick, though, is that those bodies get saved out somewhere. If it's the platform, we don't really care. But either way, we can now extract those out in a pack and go with that export SolidWorks files. It remembers all of those references. All right, let's go in and chat a little bit about section views. So section views, year over year, we add enhancements to this. This year, they've added the ability to section view cylindrical faces or cylindrical bodies. So like this handle might be super hard to figure out exactly where we'd want to go. Now I can come through and just select on that face and rotate that around. Guys, we were talking about this earlier. How many operations would that be before 2022X? You'd like
at least a handful, right?
Yeah, create a axes in there, use the temporary axes, create a plane, create the section view off the plane, and then you can rotate that plane if you want. Yeah, so that's a really nice enhancement for any cylindrical type of section view. Last thing I want to do here, I want to point out, we've had thread features, we've had the advanced hole wizard. You'll now see in the drop down this stud wizard. So stud wizard's really nice for creating threading on studs. We have our standards that we can select from, just your basic library drop downs. You can define your end conditions, and even like the undercut, you can fully define this out. Simply applies threading to a stud, and just like that, we're ready to go on this handle. All right, custom or properties. We all use properties in our parts. If you're not, you should. It's a good way to keep all that nice metadata tucked into it. They've kind of overhauled this whole UI. You'll see the configuration properties. That gets really messy, especially a lot of configurations pretty quick. You now have a configurations property tab where you can manage where and how properties are attached to. So in this case, description for this part, it's going to be the same for all the configurations. We can just apply it to all configurations. But there may be part numbers or materials or whatever it might be that are separate, you can select by configuration. This is a lot easier way to go about that. You get a nice roll up. It gives you the properties summary. So if we want to say, just show me the description on all my configurations, it tells you which configuration has which value, and then you can also modify and change from there. So super handy. Ooh, how we doing? Having fun? Questions at all in there?
No questions yet, but we do have a couple people saying Glock Nest Monster is one of our viewers right now who said, "Wow, finally!" But I missed which enhancement he or she was saying that about. So go ahead, Glock Nest Monster. Let us know what your favorite one was. What have you been waiting for all this time that we finally got here for you?
Awesome. Yeah, keep the questions coming in, or feedback if you guys are seeing something you're loving and wanting, or something that you see value in. Share why that's valuable to you. Other users might not recognize that, and just get the conversation rolling in there. One huge area of value that I see and I've seen over the years is large design review, and 2022X is no exception in making this even better. So large design review, here's a checklist, really kind of walks down what you can do. So it's not full designing, but the real big thing is you get massive performance. So opening a 6,000 plus component assembly, super fast. This opens in a matter of like seconds. When I'm inside of here, I can do like basic markups or measurements to it. I can do some mating to it. I can bring in other components and so on, but I'm not doing like true design work. Doing 2022X, as we go through, and I can open a sub-assembly in large design review. So again, super snappy, super fast, opens up. But we're going to go one more. We want to open up this gang of valves. This time, I want to do some design work. So I'm going to open it directly resolved. So what we're doing is we're having the full performance capabilities of a Ferrari, right? And when we want to do some off-roading, I can turn it into a Jeep and go four-wheeling. And we've got that resolved option right there. So best of all the worlds.
That's a really good analogy.
So open this up. Everything's loaded. All the features are loaded. All the components are loaded, just like you would every day. But we got there really fast. When you're working in assemblies, you'll now notice like insert component or non-fully defined components will have this triad. I should point out this is if the instant 3D option is on. Instant 3D, when that's enabled, just gives a really nice way to move stuff around. I love this because like moving manually, you can lose stuff in space. It's a 3D world. This we know we're defined to constrain X, Y, and Z, and we can rotate. Makes it just easy to manage our components and move them around. Got some new features for mates. This is super cool. Mates, control select, and then when you release, brings up this in context mate toolbar. You guys aren't using control, click, let go, and you get this. Fast way to do it. What they've added now is the ability to reverse or flip that mate orientation. How many times have you created a mate the wrong way and then you got a breadcrumbs and flip orientation? It's right here on the in context menu. So we gain that. Awesome. Flip that orientation. Now we'll create a second mate, concentric mate. In this case, we want to lock the rotation, right? Fully define it. We've added that as well to the mate toolbar. So you'll see flip orientation and lock rotation all available. Watch this. Let's repeat it. We're going to do a control drag, bring it in. Is that alt drag? Bring it in. Concentric, lock orientation, flip, and okay. So some super awesome enhancements to commonly used mates are now on that quick access toolbar. Hey guys, have you ever used the pattern-driven component pattern?
Can you say it 10 times fast though?
No, I'm not even trying. Really, it's a super smart way to create patterns intelligently. What this does is takes your component and it patterns based on another component pattern. So in this instance, we have some holes that have been created by a pattern. Now in 2022, when we do this, it always recognizes that seed position no matter the location. So in this case, we can click on the seed position and the pattern of the actual feature. No matter what, it'll figure out how to create this pattern. So I'll prove it. I'm going to move it. We'll place that in the location here. Let's create it again, the pattern-driven component pattern, and then we'll just select another piece, and it recognizes that. This is like machine learning to me. I think it's just super awesome to see.
Wow. Yeah, that's not a basic pattern. That's pretty complex, and You change that seed position, and it's still figured out exactly where.
Yeah, so you can
goes.
make that anywhere you want. Click it, and understands where to go. Doesn't have to be the same seed position as the pattern was created. All right, let's go back to configurations because there's a lot of new enhancements as well. We saw the part configurations. What about assemblies? So here I'm going to create a new primary system configuration. And in here, we'll go through and do the dance, right? We'll suppress a bunch of stuff. We'll maybe change some part or sub-assembly configurations to go through. But this gets pretty messy pretty quick. And, you got to be good enough to like take some notes, or I don't know how you even do it. Now 2022X has this super awesome configuration table where you can add new configurations. You can add derived configurations. You can switch, delete, rename from here. And then you can actually turn on and off, suppress or unsuppress components inside of here, or even toggle subassembly or part configurations within that configuration. So a really handy table, streamlines the spots. CAD admins are going to love that thing because you have this nice single spot to see what's all going on, especially like building libraries, custom libraries. Super awesome. It also has filtering, so you can filter by like feature, by parts, by property. All with a couple clicks. You can search inside of here as well. So like, for instance, tweaking a part number on a custom property, manage it all from right here. Really streamline a lot of the back end work. All right, so let's go through. We created a new configuration. Let's go ahead and show this in a BOM. Now, for those that haven't known, this is a question that comes up is, I have something in a BOM, but I don't want that configuration to be in the BOM. Like duct tape, right? Something that's going to be sent out with it. You can exclude those. You've always had the ability to exclude from a bill of materials from the properties. Now what we can do is in 2022X, you can go into a specific configuration and have it always be excluded from the BOM. So I don't have to manually go in and do that every time. In the configuration property, you'll see this new set exclude from bill of materials. Save it in that. Anytime that configuration is used in a BOM, it'll be automatically excluded. So nice way to manage your BOMs accordingly that way. All right. So we're going to move that to the done. Now the fun part. Let's talk about rendering. Again, I'm working with SolidWorks Visualize Connected. Hey, let's go in the chat. Anyone play with Visualize at all or get into rendering? Give me a...
Well, I just want to give like a little bit of a background for the audience. Like for anybody who doesn't know, Mike Sande is the master of Visualize. So
that's what made him my favorite
really
presenter.
Where he specializes.
I'm fortunate. I'm fortunate enough to be able to spend a lot of time with it. It's a great tool. Our production team behind it has done an awesome job making a rendering tool that anyone can use. It's really designed for the everyday engineer designer, not the CGI expert. So if you're not using it, check it out. We have an online product trial available through our website if you want to play with it there, if you've never touched it, or see if you got a license, or just buy it. It's super awesome. So let's talk about Viz Connected. So Viz Connected, just like we saw within SolidWorks Connected, we get a desktop application that's connected to the 3DEXPERIENCE platform. This is where it gets really cool. So all the data we're working with wherever in the world, saving to those collab spaces, I can pull up my Visualize seat wherever in the world and start to pull in that information and create marketing content rendering or sales content or whatever it might be, design review. The boss wants to check in. Let's wow him. We'll create a rendering. So I did a quick search for the part number. I'm going to filter a little bit. I had a bunch of results come up and I wasn't quite sure which one I wanted. So here we'll go in and say, cool. I know Eric Engineer has been working on this one. Narrows it down to 2 results. Simple enough. There's my assembly. We'll just drag that in, and what is going on in the background is Viz is going to download this locally. It's a big assembly, and it's going to do the import process. And now, once we click the OK, I'm ready to go. This is sped up a little bit. This took about 2 minutes. 6,000 components. That's not bad at all, and that's over our VPN too. So I was really impressed with the download translation time. Now on the left-hand side, I know, right? Right. That's because Eric Engineer spent the time to apply the appearances in CAD, so it imports beautifully. Like I didn't do anything. I did have to change the glass a little bit. That was the only modification I made to have it come in like that. So what I'm going to do is now save it. And again, since we're on the connected version, you'll see that all my all my little task panes on the left side is my access to the cloud. We actively create a reference. So the save now has a reference to the top level assembly. And what's so slick about that is if anything changes in the top level, we can update it here. We'll see that little green check mark. We'll say, hey, something is new. All right, update the project. All right, we'll go ahead and save it here. And once that's saved, we've got that project ready to go, and I can get that anywhere in the world. I can pull it down from the cloud. Hey guys, any questions coming through? I'm just going to do a quick refresh on this PowerPoint.
Yeah, we got
coming through.
hi, mechanical engineers, just do it. That's cool. Yeah, that we do.
That we do.
Not really a question, more of a comment, but I concur. Yes, we do it.
I concur.
I agree too. I'll tell my wife that today.
Got some visualized fans.
So let's go back over
out here.
Nice. Yeah, it's fun.
Yeah.
So if you're not used to visualize, I'm going to just do a quick little. This is I walked through to create some of the rendering content, and this is some of my new favorite features in 2022X. Here I've got the model. This is paused while it's kind of pixelated, but I brought in an HDRI. These are like, think of if you lived in a snow globe. That snow globe, what you see in the outer world, that's the HDRI. You can move it around, and it has an image to it. It has lights. The lights is the important part. So this, I wanted a really bright single source of light, a sun spot coming across, but I don't want it to look like it's hovering over the water. I think that would be a little confusing.
Yeah.
Wait, my submersible doesn't fly? This is ridiculous.
It's not a flying submersible.
So we extract the sunlight information. We want that. What we do want to do, though, is we want to create some marketing content for the commercial cruise industry. And this is actually an area where U-Boat Works focused on. You go on a Disney cruise, you can go on a sub ride. So now I've put just the static images in the background. This image, just Adobe stock or any stock image site. The problem is now I'm at the mercy of like figuring out what was the camera lens that the person used to take this picture. I have no idea. And that's the only way you're going to get like a really good perspective. New in 2022X is this match camera option. So match camera, I click on this. This gives me a nice little couple lines. And these are just defining the vanishing points. You probably remember learning about like 2-point, 3-point perspective. We should all know what perspective is, right? Yeah. So this, I'm just going to say, in this image, we know the walkway has perspective, and then off the horizon has a little perspective. That will perfectly change the CAD data and the camera I'm using to make them just seamlessly line up. So super cool. This was a big trial and error process in the past, to a point where I stopped using backplates, these background images, because it was too hard. Now, what you will notice here is the sun is coming from this side of the Nemo, but on the ship, it's on the other side. And I can tell by the shadows. So another really favorite enhancement of mine. I'm going to go in, I'm going to rotate the scene of that lakeside one, right? The original HDR I brought in. Let's rotate that around. That looks better. It looks more realistic.
But it's going through the wall.
See, you notice that, right? And even if you didn't see it, you guys out there, your brain did. And your brain's going to say, something's just not right. It's like one of those, what's different in this image. It's amazing how much your eye will catch that. So what we can do in 2022X is we can create a wall. This whole list of primitives has been around, but we can now turn primitives into shadow catchers.
Wow.
Super cool name. Could be in a sci-fi film, like Darth Shadow Catcher. I don't know. I don't want to offend any Star Wars fans out there, but I like it. And what this does, brings in a wall. We're going to move it, position it. Let's plop that right into place. We'll go back. Let's render it. And now we can see that the shadow is up the wall. The shadow catcher does is just gets rid of the geometry. So we'll click this button and disappears. And now that shadow is bent up there. So we get much more realistic shadow responses. And it's these little details inside of a rendering that can really, really kind of go from like, that's cool to, whoa, that's a rendering. I thought it was a photo. So just, time and time again, the Viz team puts it all together. Now, going back on the connected version, I wanted to point this out because this is super cool too. We saw this last year, the last FD delivery, is we can directly take in this new output viewer, all my assets that I've rendered will be here. I can see them in a nice like film strip. I've got one asset, but if we had more, the left side in 2022X, you can re-render, you can delete it, you can see the rendering settings. This has all been a new enhancement, but we can also post directly onto the platform. So like publish to Swim. Here it just says you want to publish to, maybe just a conversation between me and the boss or to our whole community. I showed you that community earlier with my spelling mistake. Plops it up here. So let's go back and what we'll see. Get out of the website. We've got that just embedded. And right away, I have my new rendering. That image is there. It was just a seamless way for me to publish right to that community. And then we can start telling, people, hey, do you love this or do you hate it? I did it. So I'm going to obviously give me a thumbs up. I mean, why not? That's the best way to do it. We got one like. All right. Getting somewhere. What's really cool, though, is you actually look on the left-hand side, and now the project that I saved says, hey, we need an update. That's because on the platform, it recognizes this new reference. It says, hey, you've changed it. We know there's a new asset that was built from this project. Do you want to update? I say yes. Gives me the new project. Now check this out. We'll click on the visualized project. We'll take a look at references. I'm in a little weird transition. Sorry about that, guys. And as we come through, now that project, if I open it up, it shows me not only the CAD file that was used to create the project, but also any of the assets that I'm creating and sharing from it. Oh, super fun, awesome response.
Yeah.
All right, check that off. We're going to put this at 70% because I have more rendering to do. I love working with it. And we'll add some comments here. So inside the task, you can attach files to it. You can add comments, have chats as they go through. And we'll go ahead and save this out. So the last thing we want to do is let's talk a little bit about simulation. And for any sim users in the audience in the chat.
Yeah, give us a shout out if you're a big SolidWorks sim fan.
It's my background. I started my ME degree. I focused on FEA, and then I taught it, and trained it, and sold it for years. So super fun to see some cool new enhancements. So here, let's jump back over to the Nemo, and let's talk about maybe a pretty standard issue you want to come into, and that's just figuring out. In this case, if you're designing subs, you have this latch mechanism that has a requirement of 500 newtons to hold this thing down. That's what we have to abide by in order to make this thing. I forget the code that they use, the design code they have to go around. But on the latch, we need 500 newtons on these three sides as we twist this. Okay, how do we do that design? And how do we validate it? Obviously, the linkage in between here has to be strong enough to, as we torque this down, that it's not going to fail. Because that's the last thing you want to do is a failed latch system when you're 100 meters down.
Yikes.
Right? It's like, oh, man. I have such fears of people who are in submersibles and that happening. So new in 2022X is a great new connector type. And this is a joint connector called a linkage rod. And this lets me define the type of linkage. We could have like a ball joint connection, a point connection, and connect these two all the way through on both sides of it. And it even lets me define not only the start and end position, but we can also take and define the type of section profile. So this could be something like a solid rectangular profile. It could be hollow to it. All of that information, along with the material, could be defined as you're setting up this linkage. So I don't have to model it. We can go through and just say, this is the linkage type we're looking to do. Let's simulate it and see if it's strong enough to make sure that we can carry enough of a torque, enough of a load to make that 500 Newton reaction force happen. New in 2022X, for the mesh geeks out there, we've been able to create mesh. Let me go back, because blended curvature mesher, which came out, I go like 2015, is by far the coolest mesher that SolidWorks offers. It's my default I go to. This is now the default, de facto, out of the box mesher you're going to get. So if you're not using it now, 2022X, it's going to start you here. It really saves a lot of hassle on trying to remesh and figure out mesh densities as you go through. What you can also do is you can now create a mesh control outside of your global mesh size. This means that not only we can always go a little smaller, we can also go bigger. So you can mesh control and create more of a draft quality or more, sorry, not draft, but a coarse mesh in certain areas that we're not too concerned about. And then you can go smaller and really create that refined mesh in areas that you are concerned about. All right, so we'll run the study. And what we want to do is take a look at, hey, we got to apply our load. So we're going to do a torque load that's going to be applied where we're twisting this in. So simple enough. We're just going to use the existing face geometry to define the direction of our torque. We'll apply the load, give it the right direction to it, and then let's go ahead and run this and see what we got for results. So again, we're trying to figure out the reaction force at that pivot and if this linkage rod is strong enough to retain that. Cool. We ran it. We can actually extract out the connector forces. So we have the shear, axial bending, and torque of that linkage. Does it make our factor of safety? Is it going to be strong enough? We can go through and start designing it as need be based on those parameters we set it at. Furthermore, we'll come in and say, hey, let's check out the resultant force located right at that contact point. We have a nice split line in there. Update the face, 161 newtons times 3 because we got 3 going around. But what did I say? 500 newtons?
500.
So
Yep.
So we're shy.
Yeah.
Right?
Just a bit.
Super simple. Since we're working in our same design environment, no big deal. I'm just going to bump up that actual little bracket to a little bit longer version of it, create more of a moment, more of a lever. Let's re-update the simulation, rerun it. We'll check that reaction force. A simple little change, super easy, 221 newtons. Awesome. 663. Yeah, we're good to go.
That'll do it.
So some really cool enhancements in Sim. I love being able to, coarsen the mesh is big, but that connector type, awesome. That's going to be like, yeah, definitely one to use in your toolbox for sure. Ooh, all right, guys, that was a lot of fun. We did kind of an intro, 3D Experience SolidWorks. Definitely we walked through the meat and potatoes, the really cool functionality in 2022X on the UX, the UI, part and assembly. I didn't get into drawings and I didn't get into graphics. So there are a lot of other functionalities available. So watch those as they come through. And then my favorite 2 subjects, visualize and simulation. I know they're on the other ends of the spectrum, but both saw some really cool enhancements there as well. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
So that's what I got for you today.
Thank you, Mike.
Yeah. And we stayed dry. We didn't even have to get into the summary. Submersible.
Submersible. Oh yeah. So what?
So
Yeah,
well, we
so
never
what's the
actually
difference?
uncovered that. What's the difference with a submersible
So
and
a
a submarine?
submarine is self-reliant in terms of oxygen and energy, meaning that it can go down for an undisclosed amount of time. So you think of a nuclear submarine that has its own power unit, right? So that can supply, and it can also recirculate its own oxygen. And I think the oxygen is the big piece there, where a submersible, like a
Oh.
Nemo, has a finite tank. Just like scuba diving,
I see.
you have to resurface over so much time. You can't recirculate oxygen. So that's the difference between submarine and submersible.
The more you know, right?
I'm sure you'll share that fact in some point in your life and you'll think back to this webinar.
Right.
And I'll be happy.
Well, thank you so much for joining us, Mike. This has been awesome seeing all of what's new in 3D Experience SolidWorks. So for those of you who watched and you want to learn more, go ahead and click the link in the description. We always have a link down there. Sometimes we'll have multiple taking you to different places, depending on what that session is about. So today we're sending you directly to the page all about the 3D Experience SolidWorks. And always got to give a special shout out to the people who make this possible. And Sarah Zuckerman is always here every session with us. And then we always have 1 or 2 other friends helping us on the back end. Today it was Mark Peterson and Andrew Gross. Thank you to all 3 of you for helping make this happen. And if you liked what you saw today and you want to see us again next time, our 12th and final session of the year 2021 will be in 4 weeks from today on December 9th. And we have two special guests joining us covering some of the machining capabilities in 3D Experience. So Michael Buckley and John Milbury are joining us then, so we can see kind of what the next step is in actually fabricating your parts. So thanks again, everyone. Always a pleasure getting on this stream and showing you what's new and cool here at SolidWorks. And yeah, until next time.